we have seen that social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, these 4 social media giants have been removing conservative views from their platforms because they want to push communist, socialist, pseudo-socialism views upon the people, and they are in league with the globalists in educating the people to have left-leaning views for the New World Order. Yes, my dear people. In fact, if we look back at a little history, we will see that there was a Jewish man by the name of Bela Kun. Bela Kun was sent by Stalin to change Hungary into a communist state. What did Bela Kun do? They first had to enforce laws destroying the morality of Hungary to force Hungary into socialism. This clearly shows us that there must be an education forcing people into corrupt morals to bring about socialism and hence the New World Order. Social media platforms have been trying to get people to believe in left-leaning cultural Marxist views to push people into the New World Order. So recently, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, was brought before the US Congress to answer questions. And if you look at his response to the American Congress, you can see he despised them. He doesn't have any value for them. He views them as bumbling fools, and he lies over and over in his answers to Congress when he was asked. They usually lie by playing they don't know what is going on, or by giving the impression that it is a mistake or some other excuse, but it is simply just lies. So he lied to Congress over and over. We want you to look at these videos of Mark Zuckerberg being questioned by Congress and see the answers he's given. Yes, my dear people, this will clearly show us that he is seeking to destroy the First Amendment right in America, and by extension, the rights and freedoms of people all over the world that use Facebook, which is a symbol of the other social media giants. So take a look at these videos.
All of the benefits that Facebook has provided in building communities and connecting families, I think a devil's bargain has been struck. And in the end, Americans do not like to be manipulated. They do not like to be spied on. We don't like it when someone is outside of our home watching. We don't like it when someone is following us around the neighborhood, or even worse, following our kids or stalking our children. Facebook now has evolved to a place where you are tracking everyone. You are collecting data on just about everybody. Yes, we understand the Facebook users that proactively sign in are in part of that platform, but you're following Facebook users even after they log off of that platform and application, and you are collecting personal information on people who do not even have Facebook accounts. Isn't that right?
Congresswoman, I believe that
yes or no?
Congresswoman, I'm not sure that, I don't think that that's what we're tracking.
No, you're collecting, you have already acknowledged that you are doing that for security purposes and commercial purposes. So you're collecting data outside of Facebook. When someone goes to a website and it has the Facebook like or share, that data is being collected by Facebook, correct?
Congresswoman,
yes or no?
That's right, that we understand in order to show which of your friends.
Yeah, so for people that
like
don't
the
even
page.
have Facebook, I don't think that the average American really understands that today, something that fundamental. And that you're tracking everyone's online activities, their searches. You can track what people buy, correct?
Congresswoman,
You're collecting that data, what people purchase online. Yes or no?
actually, if they share it with us, but Congresswoman,
Because it has a
overall,
share button, so it's gathering. Facebook has the application. In fact, you patented applications to do just that. Isn't that correct? To collect that
Congresswoman,
data.
I don't think any of those buttons share transaction data. But broadly,
But
I
they
disagree
track
with the
you. You're
characterization.
collecting medical data, correct, on people that are on the internet, whether they're Facebook users or not, right?
Congresswoman, yes, we collect some data for
And you're
security
collecting,
purposes and
you watch where we go. Senator Durbin had a funny question yesterday about where you're staying, and you didn't want to share that, but Facebook also gathers that data about where we travel. Isn't that correct?
Congresswoman, everyone has control over how that works.
I'm going to get to that, but yes, you are. Would you just acknowledge that, yes, Facebook that's the business you're in, gathering data and aggregating that data?
Congresswoman, I disagree with that characterization.
Are you saying you do not gather data on where people travel based upon their internet and the ways they sign in and things like that?
Congresswoman, the primary way that Facebook works is that people choose to share data. And they share
Primary
content
way,
because they're
but
trying
the
to
other
communicate.
way that Facebook gathers data is you buy data from data brokers outside of the platform, correct?
Congresswoman, we just announced 2 weeks ago that we were going to stop interacting with data brokers, and even though that's an industry norm, to make it so that the advertising can be more
But
relevant.
I think in the end, it's practically impossible these days to remain untracked in America for all the benefits Facebook has brought and the internet. And that's not part of the bargain. And current laws have not evolved, and the Congress has not adopted laws to address digital surveillance, and Congress should act. And I do not believe that the controls, the opaque agreement, consent agreements, the settings are an adequate substitute for fundamental privacy protections for consumers. Now,
Gentlelady's time.
thank you. I yield back my time.
Gentlelady's time.
Let that stand. And I'd like to ask unanimous consent that I put my constituents' questions in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Mr. Zuckerberg, does Facebook consider itself a neutral public forum?
Senator, we consider ourselves to be a platform for all ideas.
Let me ask the question again. Does Facebook consider itself to be a neutral public forum? And representatives of your company have given conflicting answers on this. Are you a First Amendment speaker expressing your views, or are you a neutral public forum allowing everyone to speak?
Senator, here's how we think about this. I don't believe that there is certain content that clearly we do not allow, right? Hate speech, terrorist content, nudity, anything that makes people feel unsafe in the community. From that perspective, that's why we generally try to refer to what we do as a platform for all ideas.
Let me try, just because the time is constrained. It's just a simple question. The predicate for Section 230 immunity under the CDA is that you are a neutral public forum. Do you consider yourself a neutral public forum, or are you engaged in political speech, which is your right under the First Amendment?
Well, Senator, our goal is certainly not to engage in political speech. I'm not that familiar with the specific legal language of the law that you speak to, so I would need to follow up with you on that. I'm just trying to lay out how broadly I think about this.
Well, Mr. Zuckerberg, I will say there are a great many Americans who I think are deeply concerned that Facebook and other tech companies are engaged in a pervasive pattern of bias and political censorship. There have been numerous instances with Facebook. In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, including stories about Glenn Beck. In addition to that, Facebook has initially shut down the Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day page, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. To a great many Americans, that appears to be a pervasive pattern of political bias. Do you agree with that assessment?
Senator, let me say a few things about this. First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out in the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias in the work that we do. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
Let me ask this question. Are you aware of any ad or page that has been taken down from Planned Parenthood?
Senator, I'm not, but let me just...
How about MoveOn.org?
Sorry?
How about MoveOn.org?
I'm not specifically aware of those.
How about any Democratic candidate for office?
I'm not specifically aware. I mean, I'm not sure.
In your testimony, you say that you have 15 to 20,000 people working on security and content review. Do you know the political orientation of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review?
No, Senator. We do not generally ask people about their political orientation when they're joining the company.
So as CEO, have you ever made hiring or firing decisions based on political positions or what candidates they supported?
No.
Why was Palmer Luckey fired?
That is a specific personnel matter that seems like it would be inappropriate to speak to here.
You just made a specific representation that you didn't make decisions based on political views.
Well,
is that accurate?
I can commit that it was not because of a political view.
Do you know of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review, how many, if any, have ever supported financially a Republican candidate for office?
Senator, I do not know that.
Your testimony says it is not enough that we just connect people. We have to make sure those connections are positive. It says we have to make sure people aren't using their voice to hurt people or spread misinformation. We have a responsibility not just to build tools, to make sure those tools are used for good. Mr. Zuckerberg, do you feel it's your responsibility to assess users whether they are good and positive connections or ones that those 15 to 20,000 people deem unacceptable or deplorable?
Senator, you're asking about me personally?
Facebook.
Senator, I think that there are a number of things that we would all agree are clearly bad. Foreign interference in our elections, terrorism, self-harm.
I'm talking about censorship.
Oh, well, I think that you would probably agree that we should remove terrorist propaganda from the service. So that, I agree, I think is clearly bad activity that we want to get down, and we're generally proud of how well we do at that. Now, what I can say, and I do want to get this in before the end here, is that I'm very committed to making sure that Facebook is a platform for all ideas. That is a very important founding principle of what we do. We're proud of the discourse and the different ideas that people can share on the service, and that is something that, as long as I'm running the company, I'm going to be committed to making sure is the case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Do you want to break now?
Facebook versus conservatives. It's a theme we discussed last night with internet stars Diamond and Silk, who did get some good press today, and it came up on Capitol Hill during Senator Ted Cruz's questioning of Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg.
Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. Are you aware of any ad or page that has been taken down from Planned Parenthood?
Senator, I'm not, but let me just...
How about MoveOn.org?
Sorry?
How about MoveOn.org?
I'm not specifically aware of those.
How about
cases.
any Democratic candidate for office?
I'm not specifically aware. I mean, I'm not sure.
Joining me now for reaction is the American Spectator's Jeffrey Lord, continuing our Defending the First segment. Jeffrey, I thought that was a great exchange. He actually went on to say that he is concerned because Silicon Valley is very left, and he said it's a left of center place, and that's just what it is. And so he said we're very concerned about protecting and allowing all voices on the Facebook forum. But he didn't really have a good answer to Cruz, who he kind of met his match with Ted Cruz, about all these voices that are having trouble being heard. What was your reaction to that exchange?
Well, this is what concerns me. I mean, someone else on that panel asked him whether or not he could discuss the political leanings of his employees, and he said something to the effect that, well, he doesn't check them. The point is, Laura, he doesn't have to check them. He's getting his employees from a pool of people that he himself says are extremely left-leaning. That's what's going to happen here. And, Laura, I have to laugh. This is the same argument that I was hearing when I was a teenager from people like Spiro Agnew, except it was about the technology of the day, which was CBS, ABC, and NBC. It is the same precise argument today, except we're dealing with Facebook or Google or Twitter or what have you. It doesn't change. What we're dealing with here are people who have a liberal bias, and Diamond and Silk, I could not believe that. I mean, I know Diamond and Silk. They're fabulous people. The notion that they are unsafe for the community, this is crazy. But that's the way the liberal mind works, and that's what you get.
Yeah, well, when they say
so
community...
the question is, how do we deal with it?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get to that in a second. But when they say community, they mean the liberal community. They're offensive and unsafe to the left-wing mindset that dominates in Silicon Valley and through most of California. And so they are very concerned about that. And they're very concerned about it catching on through perhaps increasing popularity of President Trump. And again, Zuckerberg, obviously he's a really smart guy, but he did not have good answers when it came to those questions of why are these examples of conservative organizations, Ted Cruz rattled them all off, not getting adequate response on Facebook when where their followers are not getting their notices. Why is that happening? Facebook always gives some mumbo jumbo answer. You don't get a good response.
Right. And we need to be candid here. In the case of Diamond and Silk, if they were African-American women who were liberal, no one at Facebook would have blinked when they posted something. The fact that they're African-American women who love Donald Trump, that's not supposed to happen, and so therefore they've got to be curbed. That's the real problem here.
So what do conservatives do, Jeffrey? Again, we're concerned about defending free expression, freedom of conscience, the First Amendment. These corporations are so big, they're like mini governments. They can control, they can keep out. So what do conservatives do? Do they just stop using Facebook? Do just delist on Facebook?
I hate to go that route here. I just instinctively don't like this kind of thing. The boycotts and all of this. I spoke to an advertiser who was boycotted several years ago by people who didn't like Rush Limbaugh, and he said to me, this was not a boycott, this was an organized terror campaign. His life was threatened, his business was threatened, his employees were harassed.
But if conservatives want to be part of the social media, just stick to social media, if they want to be part of the social media, which is important for connecting with friends or advancing, your product lines or whatever it is, then Facebook is still really, really important. So is Instagram. So is, Snapchat and all the other means of communication. And they're dominated by liberals. Today. So what do you do?
Right. He got a question today about who was his competition. And, of course, effectively the answer was he doesn't have any. I would certainly hope that there are conservatives out there who are young and enterprising and entrepreneurial-minded to challenge this. That certainly can be done over time. But other than that, at the moment, I think that your series here on Defending the First is excellent. We have got to publicize this, get the word out, whether it's on television or the internet or in print, and let people know how this game is working, because it's not a good one.
Some of you might be shocked regarding what you're about to see right now, but check this out. Facebook donated hundreds of thousands to senators grilling Zuckerberg. Now, many might not see this article about the friendship between Facebook and the U.S. government as a big deal, but ever since Facebook came online, I have been warning people about it because of something I discovered decades ago about the U.S. government's strong desire to get the American people to offer up their private information freely so as to better track each and every person in this nation. Being a student of prophecy, I knew exactly what I was looking at back then, and when Facebook finally came online, it was like I was snapped back decades in time reading that article all over again. Well, sadly, I can't find that article anymore so as to show everyone how this was all planned long ago, but it really doesn't matter anymore because prophecy already shows how the second beast in Revelation, which is the USA, will need to have such information so as to better enforce the mark of the first beast, which we all know is the Roman Catholic Vatican. And now that the truth is known by most people about Facebook due to the recent illegal activity regarding their private information, I don't even need that article anymore from decades ago. But now we see the people are once again being conned into thinking all's going to get better when in fact nothing's going to change. Since the truth is out about Facebook and the theft of all that private information, the U.S. government had no choice but to make it look like they're going to fix this when in fact it's nothing more than political theater so as to deceive the American people into staying on Facebook, and I can prove it. Besides the fact the article that I just posted proves Facebook has been paying off the senators that are supposedly grilling Zuckerberg, check out this video of this grilling, if you will, right before it started. It shows Zuckerberg the morning that he was about to be grilled by the senators. He literally gives the nod to 21 senators and shakes the hands of 2 of them, and they're all smiles. And this is supposed to be an unbiased joint session of the Senate Commerce and Judiciary Committees on Tuesday afternoon. I mean, it's supposed to be totally unbiased. If the fix wasn't already in and Zuckerberg wasn't previously briefed on everything that will be discussed, why is Zuckerberg giving the nod all across the room to each member he obviously made agreements with before sitting in that chair? I mean, it's really boldly obvious, and this is what shocked me. No one caught this. As prophesied, this is nothing more than a corrupt government performing political theater so as to keep the people in the dark as to their soon-to-be-realized methods of control. Check this video out. Okay, they're getting them all away from him. Now watch Zuckerberg start nodding. Watch.
Committees on the Judiciary and Commerce, Science, and Transportation will come to order. We welcome everyone to today's hearing on Facebook's social media privacy and the use and abuse of data. Although not unprecedented, this is a unique hearing. The issues we will consider range from data privacy and security to consumer protection and the Federal Trade Commission enforcement, touching on jurisdictions of these 2 committees. We have 44 members between our 2 committees. That may not seem like a large group by Facebook standards, but it is significant here for a hearing in the United States Senate. We will do our best to keep things moving efficiently given our circumstances. We will begin with opening statements from the chairman and ranking members of each committee, starting with Chairman Thune, and then proceed with Mr. Zuckerberg's opening statement. We will then move. We will anticipate a couple short breaks later in the afternoon, and so it's my pleasure to recognize the chairman of the Commerce Committee, Chairman Thune, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Today's hearing is extraordinary. It's extraordinary to hold a joint committee of 2 billion Facebook users. One reason that so many people are worried about this incident is what it says about how Facebook works.
Okay, I counted 21. There could be more. I'll tag it better in the video, obviously, when I edit it. And yesterday I counted 24, but I don't want to go into any great detail with this. It just makes it painfully obvious that he was briefed before this meeting, and he's got a lot of friends in the U.S. Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg, for joining us. Today is clearly timely. There's a number of extremely important questions Americans have about Facebook, including questions about safety and security of their data, about the process by which their data is made available to third parties, about what Facebook is doing to protect consumer privacy as we move forward. But one of the issues that is concerning me, and I'd like to dig a little deeper into, is how Facebook treats content on its platform. So, Mr. Zuckerberg, given the extensive reach of Facebook and its widespread use as a tool of public expression, do you think Facebook has the unique responsibility to ensure that it has clear standards regarding the censorship of content on its platform? And do you think Facebook adequately and clearly defines what these standards are for its users?
Congresswoman, yes, I feel like we have a very important responsibility to outline what the content policies are and the community standards are. This is one of the areas that frankly, I'm worried we're not doing a good enough job at right now, especially because as an American-based company where about 90% of the people in our community are outside of the US, where there are different social norms and different cultures, it's not clear to me that our current situation of how we define community standards is going to be effective for articulating that around the world. So we're looking at different ways to evolve that, and I think that this is one of the more important things that we will do.
Okay, and even focusing on content for here in America, I'd like to shift gears just a little bit and talk about Facebook's recent changes to its news feed algorithm. Your head of news partnerships recently said that Facebook is, quote, taking a step to define what quality news looks like and give that a boost so that overall there's less competition from news. Can you tell me what she means by less competition from news? And also, how does Facebook objectively determine what is acceptable news and what safeguards exist to ensure that, say, religious or conservative content is treated fairly?
Yes, Congresswoman. I'm not sure specifically what that person was referring to, but I can walk you through what the algorithm change was if that's useful.
Well, maybe I'll just go on to my other questions then. There's an issue of content discrimination, and it's not a problem unique to Facebook. There's a number of high-profile examples of edge providers engaging in blocking and censoring religious and conservative political content. In November, FCC Chairman Pai even said that edge providers routinely block or discriminate against content they don't like. This is obviously a serious allegation. How would you respond to such an allegation, and what is Facebook doing to ensure that its users are being treated fairly and objectively by content reviewers?
Congresswoman, the principle that we're a platform for all ideas is something that I care very deeply about. I am worried about bias, and we take a number of steps to make sure that none of the changes that we make are targeted in any kind of biased way. And I'd be happy to follow up with you and go into more detail on that, because I agree that this is a serious issue.
Over Easter, a Catholic university's ad with a picture of a historic San Damiano cross was rejected by Facebook. Though Facebook addressed the error within days, that it happened at all is deeply disturbing. Could you tell me what was so shocking, sensational, or excessively violent about the ad to cause it to be initially censored? Given that your company has since said it did not violate terms of service, how can users know that their content is being viewed and judged accordingly to objective standards?
Congresswoman, it sounds like we made a mistake there. I apologize for that. And unfortunately, with the amount of content in our systems and the current systems that we have in place to review, we make a relatively small % of mistakes in content review, but that can be, that's too many. And this is an area where we need to improve. What I will say is that I wouldn't extrapolate from a few examples to assuming that the overall system is biased. I get how people can look at that and draw that conclusion, but I don't think that that reflects the way that we're trying to build the system or what we've seen.
Gentleladies. Thank you, and I just, this is an important issue in building trust.
Getting into this new realm of content review, I know some of the people that work for Facebook, Campbell Brown said, for example, This is changing our relationship with publishers and emphasizing something that Facebook has never done before. It's having a point of view. And you mentioned the Diamond and Silk example where you I think described it as a mistake. Were the people who made that mistake held accountable in any way?
Congressman, let me follow up with you on that. That situation developed while I was here preparing to testify, so I'm not in all the details of it.
I do want to ask you about a study that was done dealing with the algorithm that Facebook uses to describe what is fed to people through the news feed. And what they found was, after this new algorithm was implemented, that there was a tremendous bias against conservative news and content and a favorable bias towards liberal content. And if you can look at that, that shows a 16-point disparity, which is concerning. I would imagine you're not going to want to share the algorithm itself with us. I'd encourage if you wanted to do that, but who develops the algorithm? I wrote algorithms before, and you can determine whether or not you want to write an algorithm to sort data, to compartmentalize data, but you can also put a bias in if that's the directive. Was there a directive to put a bias in? And first, are you aware of this bias that many people have looked at and analyzed and seen?
Congressman, this is a really important question. There is absolutely no directive in any of the changes that we make to have a bias in anything that we do. To the contrary, our goal is to be a platform for all ideas. And,
I know we're almost out of time, so if you can go back and look and determine if there was a bias. Whoever developed that software, you have 20,000 people that work on some of this data analysis. If you can look and see if there is a bias and let us know if there is and what you're doing about it, because that is disturbing when you see that kind of disparity.
What I'll be covering today is the first and second day of Zuckerberg's testimony before Congress. And I think that it's really important because there are several hours of off-the-cusp footage for Zuckerberg to reveal Facebook's true intentions and future plans. Something that I noticed right off the bat that was pretty funny is how the questions are distinctly split depending on the letter next to the person's name, the congressman or woman's name. Those with a D ask aggressive questions about the Cambridge Analytica data scandal, and those with an R asked questions pertaining to the bias that's being seen with Facebook's AI development in correlation with the bias already well observed by the site's trending section. I've made videos about both topics because both are worth analyzing and getting to the bottom of. And if there's one thing that I learned from Zuckerberg's testimony, it's that he really doesn't have much of a clue what's going on at Facebook. A lot of his answers are either off topic or he just says he can't answer because he doesn't know. There are huge changes going on at Facebook, and it almost seems as if Zuckerberg is just out of the loop. He said that he's briefed on lawsuits and other important matters, but he never talks about any heavy direct involvement that you'd almost expect to see from a company's CEO in such serious matters. The problem is that after the Cambridge Analytica data scandal broke, there was no significant decrease in the amount of people using Facebook. This means that largely people don't care. You know, I look at the community on this channel and I don't think that it's close to an average data set to be looking at because I got tons of comments from people who deleted their social medias, but I don't know anyone personally who deleted theirs. And Facebook's data suggests not many people actually did. Now, yesterday, Ted Cruz asked Zuckerberg if he was a First Amendment believer or not. And the first thing that Zuckerberg did was he addressed hate speech. And he quickly put it in the same category as terrorism, but he didn't define hate speech beyond terms that are even more ambiguous than the term hate speech. And this fits in rather nicely with something that was said later on in the day. Zuckerberg said that it's Facebook's job to make sure that users feel safe on the platform. So he's basically saying what we've known for a long time, and this all ties into Facebook's bias towards certain political and religious groups. What Zuckerberg is saying is that in certain instances, Facebook is basing its policies on the reaction, not the action. Obviously, not every instance of censorship is purely based on reaction. Some is also based on the SPLC's hate map as well as the ADL. I'd be willing to bet that's why Facebook has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, a Fox News reporter, and most recently, Diamond and Silk's Facebook page. There were also ads run for Easter featuring a picture of a cross that was rejected because it was deemed to break Facebook's guidelines. And look, something that people need to be very careful about whenever discussing freedom of speech is what exactly they're fighting for. Those who love freedom of speech and understand it already know this, but just because we might protect someone's right to freedom of speech doesn't mean that we believe in everything that they believe in. And maybe I don't even like what they have to say at all. That's not what this is about, though. It's about the larger picture and having an open and free place to discuss ideas.
Mark Dice here, your trusted media analyst working from my kitchen on my laptop, breaking down Mark Zuckerberg, the humanoid CEO of Facebook's testimony yesterday in front of Congress. He was questioned by a group of mostly senior citizen senators, many of whom got large donations from Facebook for their campaigns, and whose knowledge of Facebook is limited to it's some app that their grandkids use, as Senator Orrin Hatch from Utah, who's 84 years old, illustrates with his question.
Mr. Zuckerberg, I remember well your first visit to Capitol Hill back in 2010. You spoke to the Senate Republican High-Tech Task Force, which I chair. You said back then that Facebook would always be free. Is that still your objective?
Senator, yes, there will always be a version of Facebook that is free. It is our mission to try to help connect everyone around the world and to bring the world closer together. In order to do that, we believe that we need to offer a service that everyone can afford, and we're committed to doing that.
Well, if so, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
I see. That's great.
Look at this, he actually got the robot to smile. Then Democrat Senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker, expressed his concerns about the lack of diversity in the tech industry and that there were too many white people controlling the algorithms, and encouraged Zuckerberg to increase diversity, which of course is a code word for having less white straight people work there.
There's a distrust that stems from the fact, and I know I've had conversations with leaders in Facebook about the lack of diversity in the tech sector as well. People who are writing these algorithms, people who are actually policing for this data, policing for these problems. Are they going to be a part of a more diverse group that's looking at this? You're looking to hire, as you said, 5,000 new positions for, among other things, reviewing content. But we know in your industry, the inclusivity, that it's a real serious problem that you are an industry that lacks diversity in a very dramatic fashion. It's not just true with Facebook, it's true with the tech area as well.
Blah, 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 blah. Too many straight white men working in the tech industry. We've heard it all before, Senator Booker. Now go make me a sandwich. Surprisingly, Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois asked Zuckerberg this question, causing him to short circuit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world.
Yes, why don't you tell us where you're staying at, Android? After all, your entire business model is sharing personal information. Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska raised an important question about hate speech on Facebook.
I think the conceptual line between mere tech company, mere tools, and an actual content company, I think it's really hard. I think you guys have a hard challenge. I think regulation over time will have a hard challenge. And you're a private company, so you can make policies that may be less than First Amendment full spirit embracing, in my view. But I worry about that. I worry about a world where when you go from violent groups to hate speech in a hurry, in one of your responses to one of the opening questions, you may decide, or Facebook may decide, it needs to police a whole bunch of speech that I think America might be better off not having policed by one company that has a really big and powerful platform. Can you define hate speech?
Senator, I think that this is a really hard question. And I think it's one of the reasons why we struggle with it. There are certain definitions that we have around calling for violence or
let's just agree on that. If somebody's calling for violence, that shouldn't be there. I'm worried about the psychological categories around speech. You used language of safety and protection earlier. We see this happening on college campuses all across the country. It's dangerous. 40% of Americans under age 35 tell pollsters they think the First Amendment is dangerous because you might use your freedom to say something that hurts somebody else's feelings. Guess what? There are some really passionately held views about the abortion issue on this panel today. Can you imagine a world where you might decide that pro-lifers are prohibited from speaking about their abortion views on your content, on your platform?
I certainly would not want that to be the case.
But it might really be unsettling to people who've had an abortion to have an open debate about that, wouldn't it?
It might be, but I don't think that would fit any of the definitions of what we have. But I do generally agree with the point that you're making, which is as we're able to technologically shift towards especially having AI proactively look at content, I think that's going to create massive questions for society about what obligations we want to require companies to fulfill. And I do think that's a question that we need to struggle with as a country, because I know other countries are, and they're putting laws in place. And I think that America needs to figure out and create the set of principles that we want American companies to operate under.
Here's what everybody's been trying to tell you today, and I say this gently. Your user agreement sucks.
Last year, Facebook removed one of my posts and suspended me for 24 hours and then for 72 hours for the same post after I said that this individual, who is this poor baby's biological father, but identifies as the mother, for saying that this creature makes me want to puke. This person, who in my opinion shouldn't be allowed around children and is ruining this poor child's life, can do whatever it wants to, but I can't even comment on it, or that's hate speech, according to Facebook. It's been years since Facebook increased their gender options from the old-fashioned male or female to 58 different gender options, but that wasn't inclusive enough, so now it's just a fill in the blank, because we're dealing with the company which literally accepts peanut butter as a gender. That's how much they've embraced the lunatic liberal left ideology and the mass mental illness that's plaguing our planet.
Refuse to answer whether Facebook should be required by law to obtain clear permission from users before selling or sharing their personal information. So I'm going to ask it one more time. Yes or no? Should Facebook get clear permission from users before selling or sharing sensitive information about your health, your finances, your relationships? Should you have to get their permission? That's essentially the consent decree with the Federal Trade Commission that you signed in 2011. Should you have to get permission? Should the consumer have to opt in?
Senator, we do require permission to use the system and to put information in there and for all the uses of it. I want to be clear, we don't sell information. So regardless of whether we could get permission to do that, that's just not a thing that we're going to go do.
So would you support legislation? I have a bill, Senator Blumenthal referred to it, the Consent Act, that would just put on the books a law that said that Facebook and any other company that gathers information about Americans has to get their permission, their affirmative permission, before it can be reused for other purposes. Would you support that legislation to make it a national standard for not just Facebook, but for all the other companies out there, some of them bad actors? Would you support that legislation?
Senator, in general, I think that principle is exactly right, and I think we should have a discussion around how to best codify
would you
that.
support legislation to back that general principle, that opt-in, that getting permission is the standard? Would you support legislation to make that the American standard? Europeans have passed that as a law. Facebook's going to live with that law beginning on May 25th. Would you support that as the law in the United States?
Senator, as a principle, yes, I would. I think the details matter a lot.
Right,
and
but assuming that we work out the details, you do support opt-in as the standard, getting permission affirmatively as the standard for the United States. Is that correct?
Senator, I think that that's the right principle. And 100 billion times a day in our services, when people go to share content, they choose who they want to share it affirmatively.
You could support a law that enshrines that as the promise that we make to the American people, that permission has to be obtained before their information is used. Is that correct?
Senator, yes. I've said that in principle. I think that that makes sense, and the details matter. And I look forward to having our team work with you on fleshing that out.
Right. So the next subject, because I want to, again, I want to make sure that we kind of drill down here. You earlier made reference to the Child Online Privacy Protection Act of 1999, which I am the author of. So that is the Constitution for child privacy protection online in the country, and I'm very proud of that. But there are no protections additionally for a 13, a 14, or a 15-year-old. They get the same protections that a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old get. So I have a separate piece of legislation to ensure that kids who are under 16 absolutely have a privacy bill of rights, and that permission has to be received from their parents or the children before any of their information is reused for any other purpose other than that which was originally intended. Would you support a child online privacy bill of rights for kids under 16 to guarantee that that information is not reused for any other purpose without explicit permission from the parents or the kids?
Senator, I think as a general principle, I think protecting minors and protecting their privacy is extremely important. And we do a number of things on Facebook to do that already, which I'm happy to get into.
And I appreciate it. I'm talking about a law. I'm talking about a law. Would you support a law to ensure that kids under 16 have this privacy bill of rights? I had this conversation with you in your office 7 years ago about this specific subject in Palo Alto. And I think that's really what the American people want to know right now. What is the protections of this? What are the protections that are going to be put on the books for their families, but especially for their children? Would you support a privacy bill of rights for kids where opt-in is the standard? Yes or no?
Senator, I think that that's an important principle. And
I appreciate that.
And I think we should.
Do we need a law to protect those children? That's my question to you. Do you believe we need a law to do so? Yes or no?
Senator, I'm not sure if we need a law, but I think that this is certainly a thing that deserves a lot of discussion.
Again, I couldn't disagree with you more. We're leaving these children to the most rapacious commercial predators in the country who will exploit these children unless we absolutely have a law on the books.
For your patience. I am a daily Facebook user, much to my staff's distress. I do it myself. And because we need a little humor, I'm even married to a 91-year-old man that's the king of Twitter. But I know Facebook's value. I've used it for a long time. But with that value also comes obligation. We've all been sitting here for more than 4 hours. But some things are striking during this conversation. As CEO, you didn't know some key facts. You didn't know about major court cases regarding your privacy policies against your company. You didn't know that the FTC doesn't have fining authority and that Facebook could not have received fines for the 2011 consent order. You didn't know what a shadow profile was. You didn't know how many apps you need to audit. You did not know how many other firms have been sold data by Dr. Kogan other than Cambridge Analytica and Inoya Technologies, even though you were asked that question yesterday. And yes, we were all paying attention yesterday. You don't even know all the kinds of information Facebook is collecting from its own users. Here's what I do know. You have trackers all over the web. On practically every website you go to, we all see the Facebook like or Facebook share buttons. And with the Facebook Pixel, people browsing the internet may not even see that Facebook logo. It doesn't matter whether you have a Facebook account. Through those tools, Facebook is able to collect information from all of us. So I want to ask you, how many Facebook like buttons are there on non-Facebook web pages?
Congresswoman, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but we'll get back to you.
Is the number over 100 million?
I believe we've served the like button on pages more than that, but I don't know the number of pages that have the like button on actively.
How many Facebook share buttons are there on non-Facebook web pages?
I don't know the answer to that exactly off the top of my head either, but that's something that we can follow up with you on.
And do we think that's over 100 million? Likely. How many chunks of Facebook pixel code are there on non-Facebook web pages?
Congresswoman, you're asking some specific stats that I don't know off the top of my head, but we can follow up with you and get back to you on all of these.
Can you commit to get back to the committee? The European Union is asking for 72 hours on transparency. Do you think we could get that back in committee in 72 hours?
Congresswoman, I will talk to my team and we will follow up.
I know you're still reviewing, but do you know now whether there are other fourth parties that had access to the data from someone other than Dr. Kogan? Or is this something we're going to find out in a press release down the road? I think what worries all of us, and you've heard it today, is it has taken almost 3 years to hear about that. And I am convinced that there are other people out there.
Congresswoman, as I've said a number of times, we're now going to investigate every single app that had access to a large amount of people's information in the past before we lock down the platform. I do imagine that we will find some apps that were either doing something suspicious or misused people's data. If we find them, then we will ban them from the platform, take action to make sure that they delete the data, and make sure that everyone involved is informed.
And you make it public quickly, not 3 years. Thanks.
As soon as we find them.
To show you right now a little picture here. You recognize these folks?
I do.
Who are they?
I believe, is that Diamond and Silk?
That is Diamond and Silk, two biological sisters from North Carolina. I might point out they're African American. And their content was deemed by your folks to be unsafe. So, you know, I don't know what type of a picture this is, if it was taken in a police station or what, in a lineup, but apparently they've been deemed unsafe. Diamond and Silk have a question for you, and that question is, what is unsafe about two black women supporting President Donald J. Trump?
Well, Congressman, nothing is unsafe about that. The specifics of this situation, I'm not as up to speed on as I probably would be if I didn't have a hearing that I...
You have 20,000 employees, as you said, to check content, and I would suggest, as good as you are with analytics, that those 20,000 people, you do some analytical research and see how many conservative websites have been pulled down and how many liberal websites. One of our talk show hosts at home, Nick Reed, this morning on the radio said that if Diamond and Silk were liberal, they'd be on the late night talk show circuit back and forth. They're humorous, they have their opinion, not that you have to agree or that I have to agree, do agree, don't agree with them. But the fact that they're conservative, and I just remember, if you don't remember anything else from this hearing here today, remember, we do nothing and we overreact. And we're getting ready to overreact, so I would suggest you go home and review all these other things people have accused you of today. Yet with your good team, they're behind you. You're the guy to fix this. We're not. You need to save your ship. Thank you.
Facebook's treatment of Diamond and Silk is just the latest example of censoring conservatives' voices. The pro-Trump sisters became a hot topic during Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg's second day of grilling on Capitol Hill today.
Do you subjectively manipulate your algorithms to prioritize or censor speech?
Congresswoman, we don't think about what we're doing as censoring speech. I think that there are types of content like terrorism that I think that we all agree we do not want to have on our service.
So we build systems that can identify those and can remove that content, and we're very proud of that work.
Let me tell you something right now. Diamond and Silk is not terrorism.
Let's get reaction from the ladies themselves. Joining the angle now, the one and only Diamond and Silk. Okay, Diamond, let's start with you. Marsha Blackburn jumped on that because Mark Zuckerman's like, well, worried about terrorism. I'm looking at you too. I don't see any terrorism. I don't see any threat to the community standards or whatever the heck their justification is. I don't see any of it. What did you think about the play that you guys both got at this hearing, and did you get any satisfaction from what Mark Zuckerberg said?
Well, first of all, I appreciate everyone that really stood up for us and our platform, and even other conservatives. And with Mark Zuckerberg, I was happy to hear him admit that they made a mistake. So now it's time for him to rectify that mistake. We would like to sit down and talk directly to Mark Zuckerberg that he can rectify this here and make this right.
Well, Congressman Barton brought you both up as well. Let's play this so people understand what you're referring to.
Please ask Mr. Zuckerberg, why is Facebook censoring conservative bloggers such as Diamond and Silk? Facebook called them unsafe to the community. That is ludicrous. They hold conservative views. That isn't unsafe. What's your response to?
Congressman, in that specific case, our team made an enforcement error, and we have already gotten in touch with them to reverse it.
Did you get contacted by Facebook, and has this been reversed?
No, we have not been in communication with Facebook. We have not been contacted. We have not spoken to anyone over the phone. So that was a lie.
Wait a second. This is the second night we've had you on. The second time Facebook has said they have contacted you and this has been dealt with. And this is the second night you've said no contact. Like, what? I mean, you guys are either not telling the truth or Facebook, and I'm sorry, I trust you guys, not Facebook in this circumstance. I mean, have you checked your messages? I mean, is your mailbox full? Like, what's going on?
If you go to the side of our Facebook page right now, you will see where people are still having issues with liking and following our page. The same algorithms are still there. Nothing has been resolved. And no one has been in communication with Diamond and Silk.
All right, they got to get in touch with you. All right, guys.
In closing, you have seen what we have shown you here about Mark Zuckerberg before Congress. You saw the untruths that he told. They will continue their policy of censoring conservative views as if it is harmful to the community because they want left-leaning views or socialist views to spread, to prepare society for the New World Order. We are all in danger. The end is coming very soon. And you, the people, need to prepare for the end by accepting Jesus Christ as your Savior. There is no answer to this but accepting Jesus Christ as your Savior. That the views of Jesus Christ in the Gospels, which are against left-leaning views, which are against socialist views, which are against sodomite views, these views of Jesus Christ will make up your consciousness and direct your life and prepare you for the end which is swiftly coming. You need conversion by God. So may God bless you as you make the right decisions, as you prepare for the end which is swiftly coming. Remember this important thing that we told you, that none but those whose minds are settled into the truths of the Bible will be secured from the terrible judgments that are about to fall upon the face of this earth because of these evils. And we're going to show you a little clip with judgment falling upon the earth, just a symbol of the judgments that are going to fall upon the face of this earth because of these evils. So may God have mercy upon you, and may you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior before it is too late. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.